Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be talking about broker transparency and actually raising the topic from the dead because that is what the DOT is starting to do. Now, the way the DOT is doing it is not so cut and dry. So let's talk about what is happening and also let's talk about what we can expect. Is broker transparency going to become a real enforced thing? Ready? Let's go. So, do you guys remember how in June of 2025, the DOT announced a pro-trucker package? It's the one that talked about the fact that there's going to be some deregulation, that they're going to expand truck parking. And one of the biggest ones was the fact that the speed limiter rule was now dead. Well, there was another part in this package that it was very easy to just kind of glance over and not really think much about it. And it was titled Commitment to Address Unlawful Brokering. And what does it state? It states, to promote fairness and stability of the industry, the FMCSA is renewing its focus on combating unlawful double brokering, a practice that directly harms drivers. Now, at first when I read it, it didn't really kind of stand out to me, but I was happy about it because finally someone is addressing the issue of double brokering. Having been a victim of double brokering myself, I was happy that the FMCSA is finally going to pay attention to this because, frankly speaking, I'm pretty tired of checking 1,000 different websites to make sure that the person who's offering me a load is actually a legitimate broker. But it turns out that this commitment to fight unlawful brokering doesn't only focus on double brokering. Nay. This week, according to Landline, and I quote, the DOT confirmed that doing so could include moving forward with a rulemaking aimed at enforcing broker transparency regulations. So what exactly did the DOT spokesperson say? Well, first of all, they kind of read what is written in the pro-trucker package, which says that to promote fairness and stability, the FMCSA is basically cracking down on unlawful double brokering, a practice that directly harms drivers. But then the DOT spokesperson said, and I quote, that includes reviewing the entire portfolio of regulatory actions listed in the Fall 2024 Unified Agenda, including the broker transparency rulemaking proposal. So why now? Well, because we all know that the trucking industry is riddled with freight fraud and all kinds of fraud, honestly. And the way they have been combating freight fraud is by placing basically all the blame on the trucker and the carrier. We basically have to go through the ringer when trying to book something to haul. Anyone else feel like they're applying for a job with the CIA when trying to book a load? I do, because the vetting system is absolutely insane. But apart from being just a very time-consuming task, I'm talking about vetting systems here. Some of these vetting platforms now require access to extremely sensitive information that you have to send in order to be approved to haul some load. From cab cards to loan documents to photos of your ID or taking, you know how some websites have that, like you show the ID and then the website takes a picture of you to match it? Yeah, that is starting to be required. And when you send this stuff in, you can never be 100% sure. Will that information that you just sent in stay secure, or is it going to result in a case of stolen identity and more fraud? So I would argue, and I always have, that this kind of vetting system, I'm not saying that no vetting should exist, but this kind of vetting system, it does the opposite of what it intends to do. That was hard for me to pronounce. It does the opposite of what it intends to do, and instead opens the door for more potential freight fraud. Now, thankfully, some folks at the DOT finally start understanding that perhaps it's not just the truckers that are to blame for the freight fraud in the industry. Perhaps it's a good idea to step back and kind of take a look at trucking in general through a wider lens. And that lens includes brokers. Actually, two attorneys, Henry Seaton and Mark Andrews, argued that broker transparency is a way to fight freight fraud. And what they said is the following. Broker transparency is essential to determine regulated carriers' compliance with rules of commerce for civil and criminal litigation, to address carriers' rights in broker bankruptcies, as well as to facilitate production of records essential for the tracing of both stolen freight and brokers' embezzlement embezzlement of money rightly meant for trucking companies. Another guy, Dale Pax, actually said it brilliantly, so I'm going to quote him. In the context of freight brokerage, brokers act as fiduciaries, holding payments collected from shippers in trust for carriers. By complying with 49 CFR 371.3, this is the rule that is there, it exists, right? That brokers must share the records that they keep with the carrier who is requesting them. So by complying with this law, brokers uphold their fiduciary duty, ensuring transparency, proper allocation of funds, and the prevention of fraud or misappropriation. What I really like about this argument that Landline and Overdrive, both of them presented, is the fact that it has not as much to do with the monetary issues in the trucking industry. Wait, hear me out. When folks argue for broker transparency, and there are, I think Overdrive actually found 72% of people, of their readers, were very much for broker transparency. But the argument they often use is that it is going to help them make better decisions on what rates they should set. It will help them negotiate more, and it will help them catch brokers who take larger than normal margins when selling freight. But this perspective that we talked about today, it offers a different viewpoint. Broker transparency is a way to fight freight fraud. Now, is this something that is like a silver bullet that is going to absolutely end freight fraud entirely? No, of course not. But it could be a crucial step in combating it. First of all, it reduces the opportunity to do something shady. When brokers are transparent about transaction details like charges, payments, etc., it makes it harder for them to engage in shady practices like double brokering, unauthorized factoring, or embezzling funds. Now, a second thing, and I'm going to quote this, it also facilitates dispute resolution because it makes it easier to identify discrepancies and resolve disputes related to payment claims or other issues arising from a freight transaction. So those of you who have been with me for a while know that there is one thing that drives me absolutely crazy. Someone fucks up and the trucker pays for it. That is probably, if I had to just rate it, one of the biggest issues in this industry. At the end of the day, regardless of how many people are involved in a freight transaction, right? And we have the broker, we have the shipper, we have the receiver, and then we have the carrier and the trucker. At the end of the day, if something goes wrong, it is pretty much always the trucker's fault. And we see this everywhere all the time. So I am very happy that someone is finally taking a look at the industry, as I said, through a wider lens, and they're starting to recognize that perhaps the trucker/carrier is not the sole reason for this industry becoming the chaos that we see right now. I don't know, that's just my thoughts, and I'd be very curious to hear yours. Anyway, guys, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Happy Saturday, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.